Good morning, Coldwell Banker George Realty. We're really happy to see you all here. We'll be going over some of, it's not all of, but the car form additions and changes. Good morning. This is, it's not too bad. Once we printed them and reviewed them all, you'll see once we go through each document that it's really not too bad of changes. It's not too hard. So we're going to get started. Everybody in the room, please grab a package up front, help yourself to some food, and then we're going to get going. Can everybody see my screen share?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to
Yes.
get going. Okay, so everybody in the room has a package. Now, for today's training, we're going to go over the changes. If some of you are newer and you feel like you need an in-depth explanation of the RPA or anything like that, contact us separately and we'll have a meeting and go over it individually or with 2 or 3 of you that may need that training. So today is just to merely point out the changes, and this will be session 1. I'm hoping we can finish it in 2 sessions, but we'll see how many are left, okay? So let's get started. We are on the RPA. These will be residential forms. So you'll see right here, they're revising the date and they've added an additional page. So we're going to be looking at the reds. So if you look right here, the insurance, this is great that they added an insurance all by itself. Now it's not in hidden in the investigation contingency. So we have 17 days after acceptance. So they've added an individual insurance contingency. So as we've said, once you get a deal going, you should be calling the first day in for insurance, helping your client call their favorite agent, reminding them for the first couple of days to make sure they're checking on that. So here, all they've done is on the common interest disclosures and the reviewing of leased or lien items, they've added one line here, the civil code. And here they're telling you, well, what could these be? It could be solar panels, propane tanks. There's some under the sink water systems that I've seen that are leased. So it'll be things like that. They're just giving you an example of what it could be. So here, I like that they added, this is the TOPA, tenant occupied property addendum. Here they added anyone. And I think the reason is because people think maybe that the TOPA applies to people inside of the house or structure that are paying rent. It's anyone that's not on title. They should be listed on that TOPA. If somebody, relative, anybody not on title that's staying in that house with the titled owner, the listing agent, you should be prepared to provide a TOPA to the buyer's agent. Buyer's agent, make sure you're asking if anybody other than the person on title is residing in the property, okay?
Michelle, I've got a question on this.
Yes.
So if it's a seller and his immediate family, his wife and kids, do you put them on too, or just if it's a relative
Okay.
or a friend?
That's a great question. I went to a training with some lawyers and they went over this question. If they are minor children, no, you do not. If it is a spouse or a 18, 19-year-old that is not on title, then they recommend that you put them on the TOPA. Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody
Yes.
not on title that is 18 plus, regardless of their relation to that owner, should be on the TOPA. And it's a protection mechanism for the buyer and seller's agent and the buyer and seller.
Yes,
So
I
there,
agree.
yeah. Okay, thank you. So there, if I want anybody to jump in, today's a little different. I usually tell you to wait, but if you have questions, please go ahead and ask.
On the TOPA, does the seller provide that to buyer or vice versa? Yeah.
The seller would generally be the one providing it because the buyer's agent may not know at the time of offer. So as a buyer's agent, I would always ask, is there anybody occupying that's not on title? Yes. Can you provide me a TOPA? No. Okay, great. And there's a package of handouts up here for anybody that just walked in. So they've added optional wildfire disclosure. I do have, some information on frequently asked questions on this that we're going to shoot out brokerage wide to you. This is not required. It's optional. It's if it's in the zone. I am going to send out the frequently asked questions since this is a new line item. I think the report costs around $140 and it is not required unless it's in a particular zone. Okay, so I think at the next training, when I get more data on that, we'll go over that in a little more depth next time we talk. So they've added an extra line for reports here, which I think is good.
You're going a little fast. Where are you?
Where am I? I'm only hitting the reds. So right now we're on Q3 and that was page 3. And then we're going to come down and I'm going to keep looking. That's why you have in color prints, because I want you to be able to follow along. So you're going to see on 7B, they've added condition of the property, except as specified in 9C. The seller is not responsible to repair any holes left after the removal of wall hangings, such as pictures and mirrors. So 9C addresses big brackets. Like if you had a TV you were removing with big brackets, you need to repair. If you take those brackets out, you need to repair that damage. Okay. So that's why they're saying except as specified in 9C. Holes from pictures and mirrors and such, unless you've left a big, hole, a mirror, you don't have to repair. Okay. So now we're on number 3. I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that they were embedding the Fair Appraisal Act disclosure right into the offer. So they've done it now right here. See paragraph 9 for additional information. So that Fair Appraisal Act form is now embedded into this offer. You will not have a separate form going forward once these are fully released. So on, what are we, 8D, insurance. This agreement is specified in paragraph 3L4. That's that 17 days. We don't recommend that you have those countered down too low because, as you know, it's taking time in California to search around and get your insurance. And most people are okay because they have a couple of insurance agents they know. If you don't, we'll provide you with some references that you can call, okay? So if there's no questions, I'm going to continue down. Now
Yeah. I have, Michelle, I
Okay,
have
go
seen
ahead.
some,
Mm-hmm.
I have seen some, the RPAs that stipulate 7 days of insurance contingency. That's not good enough at all, you know? And actually Mark and Keaton was telling me that, they're having problem with getting the quotes from different carriers. So 7 days is definitely not long enough. So make sure at least 17 days.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. That's a great point. So we're gonna move down. They have some renumbering because they added some things, huh?
That Peter just mentioned, 17.
It's 17 days on the insurance is built into the contract now. It's its own contingency. He does not recommend you taking
Oh, the 17.
and amending it down. Yeah,
By the way, Michelle, you
Yes.
mentioned paragraph 7, 7B. It says that except as specified in paragraph 9C, but if you read in paragraph 9C, in paragraph 7B, you're not responsible to repair. But
Holes.
paragraph 9C, it says that you have to repair unless it's specified in paragraph 3P1, which is go back again on the front. And then the 3P1, there is no mentioning about repairing.
you repair any brackets that you've removed
I
on.
know, but it's just this paragraph is contradicting.
Yeah, it's there.
It's just confusing.
Yeah, but
Repair or no repair here?
you repair if you've removed large brackets. If there's, because they tend to leave bigger holes.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But the question is this paragraph, it says, paragraph 7 refer to 9C, but if you read the 9C, it's contradicting 7B.
7,
9C referring to 3P1, which doesn't mention about repairing.
I've seen it, it's, hang on,
It
it's,
just says included. This is not talking about repairing.
it's the brackets,
Okay, look at the 7B first.
7B.
7B3, except specified paragraph 9C, seller is not responsible to repair any hole, right?
And then you go to 9C,
Unless
which
it
is,
says 9C, and then you see 9C, unless otherwise specified,
hang
in
on,
paragraph 3B1, bracket attached to both portions.
Right.
That will be removed and whole shall be repaired.
that's brackets. They're talking about in this new thing, holes from these pictures on the wall. If I remove a picture, I don't need to repair all those holes. I need to repair bracket removal damage. That's what they're talking about.
You repair or no repair, here is not clear.
It's stipulated in 9C about bracket damage. If you remove brackets, you need to repair that damage. If you merely remove pictures, and I know pictures can leave some good size holes, but they're specifically addressing bracket damage because brackets tend to, you know, leave more damage.
I understand that.
Okay, so I'm gonna move on and we'll address this at the end, Herman. I can show you because I've read back and forth on that. But I see your point. I totally understand. So we're gonna come down to 9C. Items excluded from sale. And here I've highlighted unless otherwise specified in paragraph, and I've highlighted it on my readout here in paragraph 3P1, brackets attached to walls, floors, or ceiling for any such component, furniture, or item will be removed, and the holes or other damage shall be repaired but not painted. So in my training, I've highlighted that because, Herman, like you're bringing up, it's very confusing. Because to me, they should have put those two together instead of making you go here and there. But they're merely addressing brackets here. Holes for pictures and mirrors, you do not have to repair upon delivery. So if you look at the last bolded sentence in 9C, item excluded from sale, you'll see that language. And then we can talk later too, no problem. Okay, so there is a new law coming on the books, and Peter may want to address it further, but I will tell you that they've added in balconies, exterior stairways, and other elevated elements for property with any building containing 3 or more dwelling units with elevated balconies, stairway, or other elements. The seller shall, within the time specified in paragraph 3(1), deliver to the buyer wooden balcony and stairs addendum. And we have that in the package. So this law, I believe, starts 1/1/2025. But
That's
they're
correct.
already, is that correct, Peter?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
Okay,
Before that time, everybody has to get that balconies inspected and report done.
okay, so people do need to have that done.
Yes,
Okay,
yes. And if
Okay.
they have a report already, the seller has the duty to disclose it to the buyer. They give them the report.
okay. So any building containing 3 or more. Okay, so that would not exclude a single family, or does it exclude a single family?
It excludes single family.
Okay,
Only-
great.
Only the one that has three or more units.
Okay, so everybody remember that this excludes SFRs, okay? And I believe a single condo would be excluded, or would it not be
Excluded,
excluded?
yes.
Okay, all right.
Is that providing just disclosure or a report from contractor?
Herman's asking Peter we do have a new disclosure that's in the package, but Herman wants to know, is this, report must be provided by a contractor?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, of course, yes,
Mhm.
definitely.
So on 12.2, they've just added a few words. Buyer investigations do not include, among other things, an assessment of the availability and cost of general homeowners. Let's see. The availability and cost of general homeowners insurance, flood and fire insurance. So see buyer's investigation advisory. I believe we have that in this package. Anything pertaining to the RPA I tried to bring in on this one, this training. So we're going to scroll. I hope I'm not making people sick doing this, but I'm trying to get down to all the reds. So now we're at 14B3. And I like that they added this. I think it's so important, even though it's a little embedded, but and it says it at the top in the grid too, that buyer is advised not to remove contingencies relating to review of documents until all the documents have been delivered. When a seller's agent delivers documents late, you have 5 days from the date of receipt, 5 days to review that document. If they don't deliver that until the 17th day, and that was your contingency period for that particular line item, excuse me, you have 5 more days to review that document. So I'm going to come down to notice or buyer to perform. So what they're talking about here is that 2 days prior to the scheduled performance day to remove contingencies or cancel the agreement, step for close of escrow, which shall be delivered under the terms of 14G. So the notice to perform handles all the contractual obligations, like if they didn't put a deposit in at the beginning, things like that. For closing, you would need to use the form, which they're referring you to here, the demand to close escrow, okay? So that's why they said accept close of escrow, okay? So they tried to make that a little more clear. So if you notice on multiple items, the notice is valid for all the contingencies and contractual actions for which the delivery of the notice is within the time permitted. So if you do and void as to the others. So if you just checked everything and you were pre-checking it ahead of the 2 days prior to that contingency, that line item will be void. You're only checking the items that are inbound. I call it inbound. 2 days prior to the removal, to the scheduled performance day of the removal, you can deliver it, or you can deliver it on the day they should have removed them. If you think you're having problems, I would be calling and talking to the other agent, you know, and seeing really what's going on. But you do contractually, you can deliver a notice to perform 2 days ahead of the scheduled contingency removal date. So brokers and agents in the compensation section, they wrote, if seller agrees to pay the obligation of buyer to compensate buyer's broker, the seller would be entitled to a copy of the written portion of the compensation agreement between the buyer and the buyer's broker, which we've already been addressing that. So they just added a few words there, okay? And so that you know, we will be addressing heavily the buyer's compensation forms once those are released in draft. They pulled back a little bit, so those aren't, we will not be addressing them yet. But keep that in mind that as soon as they're ready to release, we'll be addressing them in a class. Okay, so they've added here, escrow holder shall provide buyer and seller separate closing statements with written documentation showing the amount paid to the buyer's broker and the seller's broker. So that will be outlined on the buyer's or the seller's closing statement. So here, the delivery of documents. So a document or an applicable link because when you deliver a link, it's delivered, shall be deemed to be in possession if it is located in the box for the applicable party and authorized agent. So we have that designated delivery form. They've made the back of the contract a little bit easier on that. We'll go over that. I like designated delivery because I don't want to chase somebody around for days saying, hey, did you receive my email? Did you receive my email? Did you get the document? I want to know when I hit send that it's considered delivered. And they have amended that form as well. You can opt out of that, but we'll get to that in a minute. So they've just renumbered. There's not much changes here. Here, they're just referencing 28B, B and D. Okay. So here's where they've added that form 29, paragraph 29. The Fair Appraisal Act notice is now embedded in your offer, so you will not have a separate form, and we will revise Sky Slope to pick that up, okay? When these new purchase offer drops into all of our car forms, okay? So now we're eliminating one form, it's brought into the RPA. So legally authorized signer, like if it's an entity, LLC, anything like that, a trust, you have 3 days after acceptance to give evidence of authority. Your escrow officers, you should do it up front. As a listing agent, you should have that authority ready. I like the representation capacity if the buyer did not fill out the back, which they wouldn't know. So I would provide them with the representation capacity, but in addition to that, escrow will be asking for the proof and evidence that the signer is authorized, okay? So here they've changed this. This is intentionally left blank. So now we have a big blank on page 15 of 17. Intentionally left blank after number 32. So here is where they've done some work on the entity buyer, and they've added about if the property is under jurisdiction of a probate court, identify the buyer as executor or administrator or by simplified probate name. So they've outlined that for you, and number 5, they've added, this is the full name of the entity. If a trust, enter the complete trust name, and etc. So you enter the case number or the trust name here. When you are entering a trust, make sure that you have, Peter, don't they have to have the date of the trust as well when naming the trust?
Yes,
Yeah.
recommend that, but if you can adequately identify the trust is okay too.
Okay, great.
Mm.
So this is just a renumbering, and let's see. So we went over this about, that's a renumbering. And here, real estate brokers section, number 3, they've added the words confirmation of offered compensation. So they're talking about the buyer's compensation. So look that over. And again, we'll be going over all of that. So the designated electronic delivery addresses should be up here. So they've kind of amended this, which I like. So now it says the email above, which is up in the signature block, or you write something else in here and you can attach a DEDA. If parties elect to have an alternative delivery method other than the email above, you attach the DEDA. I like that it says right off the top, hey, that's your designated delivery email. So you're not chasing for an extra form, you've already got it, okay? That makes this so much simpler for all of us. The same thing down here on the seller brokerage, seller's agent signatures. Okay, so now we've completed the RPA changes, so not too bad. Does anybody have any questions before we move in? Peter or Doug, do you have any comments?
No, I'm good.
Yeah,
I
can I
get,
Again, tell all the agents and don't get intimidated by the language in the RPA. You know, they're trying to make it in detailed form, and it's a lot of wording there. But the most important thing is to look at those you know, in the first page where they have the blocks and the sections, and they summarize it pretty well. So you know, you just have to kind of make it, you know, make it usable for you, and then you won't be so intimidated.
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. And then I don't know if you guys all printed out this June 2024 quick summary. I'm gonna go ahead and email this out to everybody. I love this grid. I think it is so handy. So we'll email out regarding the wildfire disclosure report and this quick summary. This is gonna help you a lot, showing you the changes or giving you some verbiage on the changes on the forms, okay? So it's really, these changes are pretty easy once you kind of look at them yourself. You know, it seems like a lot until you really get into it. So here's the designated delivery address amendment. I added this in at the last minute because I think we need to address it with the RPA. So buyer's agent, the address below, if completed, are intended to replace the designated delivery addresses, if any, specified in the agreement. So if you need to replace it, you do it with this form, okay? So same with the seller's agent. Effective date of electronic delivery is when sent. They've added, here's your package. They've added that so that it's understood by all. Now, if you opt out, you can check a box to opt out. So if checked, the act of sending in and of itself any notice or document to the designated electronic delivery address shall not constitute a delivery. You know, I would prefer, like, if I'm working with another agent, I'm gonna hope they don't opt out, because you always want to make sure and confirm that the people have received the information you're trying to provide. Even with the delivery being left as their email address, that's the delivery address, I always write at the bottom of my email, thank you very much and please confirm receipt, because I want to make sure. And if I don't hear back, I'll call them or text them to take a look at their email, okay? Here's the TOPA form, tenant occupied property addendum. This is the form you use if there's any occupant other than the titled owner. And remember, this is for non-paying people paying rent to the property owner or paying, okay, the TOPA. So they've just added a couple of words here. Which total amount shall be no more than, and let's see, buyer may cancel this agreement and buyer's sole remedy shall be return of the deposit and buyer's reasonable out-of-pocket expenses for inspection of reports and appraisal fees under this agreement. And so here you can check the box and limit that. So if somebody's gone ahead and done some inspections and stuff, you can stipulate here what is the limit of the reimbursement on that. Okay. Buyers, this is great. Buyers, homeowners insurance advisory. Love this. I'm glad it's here. So they have added some verbiage to it. The cancellation right to a specific contingency pertaining to insurance or may be part of an overall investigation contingency. It's really great that it's lined out separately for us, and you're going to see in further forms where they've really been very protective to make sure that you can either keep the insurance contingency in play or you can remove it separately. Okay, so they've just amended some words here, and they're even telling you about the California insurance market. And they're saying due to the rising replacement costs and increase in natural disasters, and they're saying that some insurance companies have stopped insuring in California. So this is a great disclosure for the buyer. This is a good time when you're having them sign it with the offer. Hey, if we get accepted the first day, we are notified we're accepted, please begin to call your insurance agent. Give them the particulars of the address and all that. This is a good time to address that with your buyer. Here is the addendum that on that.
Okay, before
ahead.
you move on to the wooden balcony, Michelle, I have to point out that the insurance crisis is particularly bad for HOA. You know, a lot of insurance that they are not covering the HOA, and the agent, that the insurance agent has difficulty in getting insurance coverage. So when you are dealing with an HOA property, make sure that you have adequate time to allow the insurance agents to find insurance for you.
Oh, that's great. Thank you very much, Peter. So, let's see, wooden balconies and stairs addendum, which is new. So they're outlining regarding the wooden balcony and stairs addendum and the requirement to deliver the report. But this is new. I didn't have a chance yet to deep dive it and to provide you with the charts. I do have one, but I want to table that till the next meeting, and we'll go further into the wooden balcony and the requirements thereof.
One question, Joe. I thought the HOA covered anything on the outside, like the stairs and balconies and stuff like that.
Okay, so Catherine's asking about the HOA covering the outside. So they have, when the property is in a common interest development, the requirements under Health and Safety Code do not apply to the owner of a property in a common interest development. However, the association will have similar obligations, but the inspection is required every 9 years for that. The report shall be kept incorporated into the association's reserve study. I like this. So this just gave us a clue. When we are assisting somebody buying in a common interest development, make sure that you ask that the HOA provides you that report if it's not in the documents you receive. That's great. Thank you for triggering that.
HOA coming up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
On the question that she was asking, because the balcony is attached to just your unit, you are responsible for covering it, because a lot of people have barbecues out there and stuff like that. And if they cause damage, it's the tenant who owns that, or the owner who owns that property, the balcony is part of their unit, is responsible.
Okay,
That's
so
the HOA.
what Franco's bringing up is if the balcony is attached to your unit and you're like, have all your stuff out there, for instance, like a barbecue or something, then you're gonna be responsible. Now, yes, and I would also caution you to read the documents from the HOA because I've seen it very stipulated who's responsible for balcony and balcony maintenance, even if it's attached to individual units. If it's written well, they will outline it. Thank you for bringing that up, Franco. So look in those documents because they're gonna outline who is responsible. You need to know that, especially with this new law. Do you have any comments, Peter?
As far as I understand, if you are your HOA, if you have your own balcony, you're not obligated to get a report and a
Right.
certification. But if for the common area of the HOA that has more than 3 units, yeah, you are required to do that. That's what I understand.
Okay, thank you, Peter.
Do you have a
Sure.
example of the certification of this balcony?
The certification example, I don't. I only have frequently asked questions that I'm going to try to get more information on. I just didn't have a chance this week, but we'll table this to next week and see if I can get a sample from an inspection company that actually has done any of these. Okay? The Buyers Homeowners Association Advisory, they've added a few words here. And they've pulled in the wood balcony, stairs and other structure reserve requirements. So prior to January 1, 2025, buildings with 3 or more units may be required to obtain the inspection of exterior balconies, stairways, walkways. For condos, the HOA will be responsible for these inspections per its governing documents, okay? An inspection report must be incorporated into the condo HOA study and reserve account requirements. So make sure, again, that you are looking for these reports. Okay, so the balcony report, what it's going to talk about is it's identifying any immediate threat to the safety of the occupants, which will require the condo HOA or owner to prevent access to the balcony until further impacting access to the balcony, further impacting the property's markability. So what they're saying, if it's not safe, it must be blocked off, okay? So we will get more information on that. So lending considerations, the lenders will generally require the HOA to have a general insurance policy covering the HOA, which has become less available and more costly in California due to the rising replacement costs. So make sure that, you know, you're looking at the health of that HOA and that they have everything in place that is required. The seller's agent should be, the HOA should be providing that to you. But I always take a look through HOA documents. I wouldn't just blindly give them. We're not experts on it, but we can use the wealth of our experience to help someone. They can go to a lawyer, have them reviewed if they're concerned. But if there's little tips you can give them the tip and let them know that they're welcome to go have those reviewed by a legal expert, okay? Market conditions advisory. They've added non-contingent offers. This section here, if the buyer is dissatisfied with the property's condition after an inspection, if an insurance policy cannot be obtained, or for any other contingency with the purchase agreement. So they're basically telling you that if these things happen and you don't have those contingencies, you know, your initial deposit could become a contention between the buyer and seller. We do not advise non-contingent offers. Obviously, we've always said that. But if somebody's insisting, make sure that they understand the ramifications of not having certain contingencies or none. And they've even added insurance contingency. If you cannot obtain insurance or disapprove of the cost, you may not, and you do not want to purchase that property and you didn't leave the contingency in play, you may legally be in default under the contract and required to pay damages or forfeit your deposit. So that's up to the arbitration and courts, but you should let your people know to leave contingencies in play until they've done a thorough inspection. Non-contingent, did I put that in twice? Hang on, market, oh, okay. Yes.
Michelle, we have actually had, offers with the removal of all contingencies up front. So as the seller, representing the seller, we can't force them to not, you know what I'm saying? To protect their buyer. So where does the seller stand? The seller is still in good position. It's really the buyer that is in danger of losing their, right, their.
So Peter, what Mary Scott is asking is, when you're a listing agent, and I've seen it too, they come in with no contingencies
Because it's all.
because they're
Yeah,
doing all cash. I don't, she's saying, whose obligation is it to protect the buyer? Isn't it the buyer's agent obligation?
Yeah, it is partially the buyer's responsibility, because the buyer has the fiduciary duty to inform the buyer what happened if they remove all the contingencies quickly.
Yeah. Or come in with none, yeah.
Yeah, or come in with none, right?
So
there-
this, oh,
So,
go
so there are three very important contingencies that you should not remove lightly. First one is the physical inspection contingency, and the loan contingency, and now is the insurance contingency. Those three contingencies are very, very important, and those are also very unpredictable. So make sure you have plenty of time and make sure that you understand the ramification of those contingency. Once you remove them, you know, you're at the mercy of the seller.
Okay. So non-contingency offer advisory, if you have a buyer coming in that's saying, no, I'm going fully non-contingent with cash, make sure that you get this signed right up front with the offer and go over it with them. And I would even be one step further because that's the way I am. I would probably also email it to them. You know, so make sure that they're going over this disclosure. The lawyers have done a good job in providing this to us from CAR. We can provide this to anybody that's considering a non-contingent offer. Okay, so assignment of agreement amendment, probably these will pertain to people, you know, working with LLCs or anything like that, or maybe they're creating an individual's buying something and they're going to create an entity to hold title to that property. So they've done consideration for assignment right here. And I like that they added this. They put the buyer here, they've had this in here, but they put the buyer is not received and will not receive any monetary compensation from assignee for this assignment. Or you can check B, buyer has received or will receive consideration from assignee in the amount of, put the amount here, or maybe it's a percentage or something. So they've added B here so that they're disclosing right up front whether they're being paid for that assignment or not. Okay?
What's a quick example?
Oh, Peter could probably address it better. So Mary Scott wants a quick example. I have a couple, but Peter, you could probably state it better of why somebody would assign an agreement like an individual perhaps to an LLC. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, if you want to limit the liability, you should vest your properties in the LLC, because the LLC has a limited liability feature. That's that's the most important consideration that you have. So at any time that you want to limit your liability, you want to assign it to the LLC instead of for yourself, because yourself is unlimited liability.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Peter.
Sure.
Water conserving plumbing fixtures and carbon monoxide detector advisory. They've added some words here. They've added that requires all single family residents, multifamily and commercial property built on or before 1994 to be equipped with those water conserving plumbing fixtures. Okay, so they've added some words so that we all understand where the requirement is, what types of property, which I think is good. So, and they're also advising the buyer down here on C. Now with this red writing, buyer is advised to investigate the cost to bring any non-compliant water fixtures into compliance before removing that investigation, their investigation contingency. So they could have, there's companies that come out and just strictly provide quotes on this type of work, okay?
Yeah, that's that's an important addition to the form, because it used to be that they didn't have that kind of including the cost to bring that non-compliant to compliance. Sometimes it can be very expensive, so you should find out that before you remove the contingency. For sure.
Yes. So they've added some language under the carbon monoxide require installation. So they're just firming it up that the The types of dwelling units that would require this are dwelling units intended for human occupancy.
Mhm.
Okay, so they're trying to make it crystal clear what kind of properties or structures would require carbon monoxide.
Michelle, all these changes are, in process, they're not effective until they finalize.
I believe these will drop by the end. They might have already dropped. Peter, do these drop today, these changes? I'm not sure about that.
They're
They'll be-
supposed to release it on the 26th, but I don't know what they
Yeah.
may have experienced some delay. So I
Mhm.
haven't had any confirmation yet, but we can check.
Yeah, and usually, once it's effective, it's dropped already into everybody's car forms.
Yeah.
And it'll be dropped automatically, so you'll be covered. Yeah. So Jeffrey's asking,
Is there a grace period for the old form, if this one is drop on while we're writing an offer?
is there a grace period? Um, I don't think so. I think once they drop, you're required to use them.
We have to be
Yes.
hitting them
Yes.
in
No.
the-
No grace period. They will not guarantee the legality of the old forms anymore once they replace the old one.
But as long as the client already signed the old form, that's already legal, right? Or do we need to withdraw all the form that already signed before the transaction close?
But if you use the form before the new form was released, then the old form, yes, is still is legally protected.
So, do you know if the broker version of zip forms, which I'm still using because I'm paying for it, are those forms going to be updated, or is the broker not updating the zip forms broker version?
She's asking, will the broker version of zip forms be updated from my?
Yes, it would be automatically
Yeah.
updated.
Mm-hmm. So the statewide doesn't have a lot of changes, so I'm gonna quickly get to page 8. Right here. So on number 12, they've added some verbiage regarding rent and eviction control laws and ordinances. As part of this disclosure, they've added some words here. So they're even saying the brokers recommend that the buyer investigate the issue with an appropriate government authority or, and I like it, a qualified California real estate attorney. That's who you should be talking to in eviction issues, not trying to handle it as an agent, because we don't have that expertise unless you're a lawyer. Okay, so they added some words here. And then they've added the wooden balcony as number
Yeah.
10. It begins on page 14 and continues into 15.
Yeah, those are the only changes.
That's it.
Mhm.
Solar advisory. They've just added number 9 on page 2, regardless of whether the solar power system is owned, leased, or subject to a power purchase agreement. Is there any transfer fee or other fee for the change of ownership? So they want the owner of the property to answer that, because the solar companies are all different in how they handle things. Okay, so that's the only change on that. The TDS. Okay, so they've added a note to C4 and 5. So I had to double take and reread this a few times. So if the transferor acquired the property within 18 months of accepting an offer to sell it, the transferor shall make additional disclosures regarding the room
Just a
additions.
question for the solar,
Yes,
they earning income from that? How are we supposed to transfer that income?
okay, so that's beyond my expertise, but I'll give you my opinion. If they're earning income and so we're backing up to solar. Herman's asking, how does the new buyer, if that solar energy collected is earning income, you need to have your buyer make a call to that solar company and ask that question. Because as a real estate agent, I can't answer it. I don't know, because all companies have different rules, regulations, only because I've ran into that. I know what you're asking. And my thing was to call the solar company, get things in writing. Do you have anything to add to that, Peter?
Yeah, and read your contract carefully. Everything is contained in the contract. So, you know, whatever the whether you get the credit for energy, the saving, it's all contained in the contract. Make sure you read the contract carefully.
Yeah, and call, because those things can be like very legal worded, so you want to call, make sure you understand everything. If it's really a lot of questions, they may want to consult with an attorney.
Right.
Okay, so here on the TDS, they're adding a note about the 18 months. If the seller, so we're on the TDS, if the seller acquired the property with 18 months of accepting this offer to sell it, the seller shall make additional disclosures regarding the room additions, structural modifications, or other alterations and repairs. So I guess you can think of flippers, but it could be maybe a family bought the property, you know, made it their own and then got job transfers. So they're trying to say if that's within the past 18 months that you've done rehabbing on the property, that you need to disclose all of that. And they've also modified the SPQ, so we'll take a look at that. So as you can see, as we're going along, these changes aren't so overwhelming once we take a look at them individually. Just follow your forms, use the required forms, and you know, do your research on like solar questions, things like that. Make sure you're instructing your buyer to call.
Yeah, and I like to remind everybody that, you know, that during the last 2 weeks when I have those forms, I summarized them very precisely, all the changes and in my PowerPoints. So just go back and print out all the PowerPoints, and then you retrieve the actual documents in the zip form, and then you compare them, you know, and then look at the changes that I have indicated on the PowerPoints. That will help you a lot to kind of identify what kind of changes you have in the form. Very easy.
Yeah. And then, so we're on the SPQ. Thank you, Peter. And they've added some, you know, some line items. So go ahead and read these line items. These are for the seller to fill out, not us. We don't put our pin on this. You have the seller fill it out. And if they have questions, you can answer them to the best of your ability, or even ask one of us or call the legal hotline. We'll be happy to help you with any questions you have. So take a look at the red. They've added some questions here. And they've even added the existence of a solar power system. So they're really making sure that that buyer knows if there's one there, okay? So these are fairly simple, just look them over. And I like that they added if the property's tenant occupied, do you have somebody in there that's not on title? That's the way I will think about that, okay? So they have another one that says whether the property was previously tenant occupied, even if vacant now. If yes, they want you to disclose the method or manner of how the tenancy ended, okay? So I need to find out, like, how far back are we going on that question, Peter? Or is there any guidance on that?
And what's the question again?
It says whether the property was previously tenant occupied, even if vacant now, yes or no. If you checked yes, that there had previously been a tenant, they want to know the method or manner of how
Yes,
that
yes, they do.
tenancy ended.
Right. Then you have to tell them the information, you know, if it has been previously occupied.
Okay, so anytime that you're representing a seller and that property had a tenant, make sure they're checking yes and giving when, the method or how
Right.
the tenancy ended.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting the question, why is this important? I can answer it because this is what I believe the reason it's important is because of all of these laws for tenants right now. They don't want somebody bouncing back and saying, hey, I had a right to rent that. That's my opinion. I don't know if Peter
That's true.
has
That is one of the reason. And also you want to find out, why, how the tenancy is terminated. Maybe you have kick out the tenants illegally, and then and then they come back and haunt you, the new owner.
Yeah, we don't want any bounce
We don't
back.
want to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're almost done, folks. I know this has been long, but we're right at the end. Septic inspection, well inspection, property monument, propane tank allocation, of cost addendum. They only added that any propane remaining in the tank shall convey to the buyer as personal property at no cost, or the buyer, shall reimburse the seller for the cost. So you put a check there if that's the case. We want to stop for a minute on this. This is very important. Properties that you wouldn't even think may have had a septic tank. I've heard of 2 cases. One where it was on street sewer. Somebody went to build in this ginormous backyard and hit an old abandoned tank. So if you can, ask your sellers, do you know of any of these items that are contained in this form? Have you ever known of this being on the property? So that you've asked your question, document your file that you asked, okay? Yes,
Yeah, some people might think that they only have him in rural areas, but we even have him in Lipo Heights on the hills.
right.
So it's not just in the farms or, way out there, there's some in the city too.
Right, so Oscar was saying that it's not just rural properties, they have them in Lincoln Heights,
Down the street, up the hill.
up the hill in South Pass. My neighbor 3 doors down is on septic tank because he doesn't want to hook to sewer. So, you have to be aware of this and ask them. I sold a property a couple years ago in Paramount, and I kind of knew a little bit about the area because I grew up there. And I said, is there a septic tank back here? And I said, because they had owned the property 50 years. No. So just ask the question and write it on your file so that you feel safe with it, okay? It's not too big of a deal. So the SIP form, seller license to remain in possession. So this is intended for a seller that will be in possession after close for 29 days or less. They just added a little bit of stuff about the maintenance here on 3A. So go ahead and read that section. And we're almost to the bottom, I promise, the AVID. We're on the AVID. They've added additional space for another bedroom and bath, which is great because there's larger homes. Now, this kind of confused me when I first looked at it. This I understand. When you perform the inspection, this is where you're signing, okay? So the real estate broker, the other broker, the buyer's agent signs here. So that's why they tried to make it crystal clear. It's the agent that did not conduct this investigation. Or it could be the seller, so sign here, okay?
Michelle. Oh,
Okay. So I think that concludes our training. Buyer contingency removal. They've added the insurance as its separate line item in both sections here. Notice for buyer to perform, they've added the insurance as its own separate line item. And the VP, they've added that the verification of the property by buyer or put the name here, performed on. Now, if the buyer on the contract is not showing up, please make sure that they waive that Okay, if the buyer is not showing up, they can waive it, okay?
Mhm.
I'm gonna save the compensation well, I can get through it. So this is a compensation agreement. They've only made a couple of changes. This is for if there's no listing agreement. So if you're making an offer on a property where there's not a listing agreement, you're just trying to go direct and get your offer in. They've made a change right here. Compensation is payable if principal enters into agreement on the above property no later than. So very simple changes. They've added additional information about MLS and images. Go ahead and read that. Legally authorized signature. Read this section. So that's not too much change. Single party compensation agreement. They've added the agency relationships and the confirmation, potentially competing sellers and buyers, which we are all aware of those forms. So go ahead and read those additions, the MLS and images. I'm trying to get through because I think we're running over. That is the end of this training session. We will have one or two more. And the reason that we as a broker or brokerage are doing this is because we want to show you that these changes aren't so alarming. We can manage them. If you have any questions or feel like you're struggling on a form, we're here 5 days a week. You can reach us on Saturdays as well. Please ask the questions. We're here to help you. We want to see you get through your transactions. Anything else, Peter?
Oh, they pretty much cover it, and as I emphasize again, don't be intimidated. You just do like a dissection, you know, you just dissect it one by one, and you'll find it much easier.
So that was my question. When I come in here, since we don't have a manager, do I see Peter or you?
Peter and I have been helping
Okay.
everybody.
Yeah, cause I come in.
If Peter's not here, I'll help you. If you need Peter, you can always reach him or you can ask me.
Okay.
I consult with Peter every day. We kind of go in tandem. So we're here to help you.
Right.
If you ask me and I don't have the question, I'm not embarrassed to say, gee, I don't know, let me find out. Because what we want to do is lead you the right way
Right.
and we want you to close. Yeah. So does anybody else have any questions or comments? Mary?
Yeah, Michelle, as you know, I'm an escrow on a sales transaction and represent the seller. Now, the buyer has not done an AVID, the agent inspection, and what they did is they provided from their broker, Century 21, they provided a document that says the buyer's agent's AVID is not required by the Department of Real Estate.
Correct.
Okay,
So she's saying the buyer's agent is refusing to perform on an AVID because it's not required by the DRE and they've sent them a form. So in that case, we upload it into SkySlope and that's that. Yes, that's correct.
and another question on the verification of property condition. This is basically the buyer is supposed to be there. In other words,
They should be.
the buyer's agent can't do it for them, right?
Okay, so if I have a client, a buyer, and they're like overseas or gone, and they say, God, I can't make it. And I did have this happen once, and it was unfortunate because it was on multi-units. And I'm going through these units by myself because he's on an airplane. So what I did in that case is I still continued on because the tenants were ready for me. I went and I looked as best I could, had him waive it because it's not my fault that you did not show up for your final, had him waive it, but I still went through. If I noticed anything weird, of course, I'm gonna let him know. But it's his responsibility or her.
Because I have an international buyer who may not be here for the verification of property conditions. So where do I have them waive that?
There's a box at the bottom that says buyer waives.
Okay.
Check it, yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I would like to say, Michelle, just in case, but you know, I'm not in the office and I have to come, if you need a question asked, or I have a meeting with you, what is the best day to call you to find out if I can make an appointment?
Oh, she's asking Peter, when's the best day to call us for appointments if they have questions any day.
Any
during
day,
the week.
anytime, 24/7.
We don't want you to struggle.
Because I asked that question because you caught, I'm not in the office, you could be caught up doing something and already scheduled for something else. So that's why I say, you know.
Yeah, I have people walking in, Peter has them walking in, and we try to manage it, because if you're in a situation where you feel alarmed or you're nervous, we want to address it with you right away. We're not going to leave you hanging. One of us, somebody will step out and help you.
Thank you.
Michelle, unfortunately, I have a very critical question today that I need to have answered. Is it possible to?
Yes.
Send Peter an email if I could meet with him, but I don't even know if he's in.
Yeah, we'll address that after the meeting, and we'll get in touch with Peter. Any other questions before we go?
Thank you, Michelle.
Oh, thank you, everybody. It
Bye.
was a
Thank you,
pleasure to
everybody.
see so many
Have a nice
people.
weekend.
Like on the VT, like if the buyer cannot show, can they do like power of attorney? Power of attorney, can they do that when they are international?
Yeah, let me address that with you. I've done that. Thank you all. We'll see you next
Bye.
week. And we'll conclude the new forms training, and then we'll do the commission forms as soon as they're issued. I thank you all for your time, and we wish you a great weekend.
Yep. Have a nice weekend, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Michelle, when